Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Marcos Villegas, Fight Up TV, being joined with Chris Algieri as we preview this fight coming up, Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios, that will be happening in Las Vegas, upcoming on pay-per-view, the return of a 46-year-old Pac-Man. One of the topics we're talking about, Chris, but first, man, hey, good to see you, bro. I don't get to see you a lot anymore, which sucks, but I'm glad we're connecting now. What's been going on, man?
Yeah, man. You said I see you all the time. I guess I was in Vegas a lot more than I am now lately, but I mean, still.
No, I haven't seen you in a few months, bro.
Yeah, no, it's you know, I'm running around with Pro Box TV so much, so but now we got ppv.com is bringing me out to these fights, so we should have a nice run the rest of this year. I'll be you'll be seeing a lot of my face. Put it that way.
Okay, that's not a bad thing. We always have good little convos about just random stuff, sure. Chris. So yeah, you know, obviously, I'm reaching out to you because you fought Manny Pacquiao in Macau, China. We've talked about your experiences with fighting Manny on multiple occasions, but you know, just with this particular thing, like him coming out of retirement, being 46 and fighting a 30-year-old in Mario Barrios, though, many have said if there was a fight for him to come back to, like this is the right style for him, but can a 40, you knowing so much about physiology, can a 46-year-old beat a 30-year-old in a prize fight?
I mean, simple answer, yes. But it just depends. It depends what version of that 46-year-old we're getting. Manny's had a lot of tough fights. He's had a long career. He's been in a lot of weight classes. He's fought much bigger men a lot of his career. And we're not talking about Pernell Whitaker. He wasn't exactly a defensive wizard. His defense was good, but he was in a lot of wars and some tough fights. So you got to take that into account as well. But listen, if anybody can do it, man, it's Manny. Manny is special. He is a one of one. There's never been a Manny Pacquiao. There will never be another Manny Pacquiao. So that nostalgia in my mind gives me hope that he actually could go out there and do it again. I mean, and you brought up a point about this fight, and I don't think if it wasn't Mario Barrios, and this is no knock on Barrios, I think Barrios is very good, but stylistically, Manny has always done really well with taller fighters. The guys who gave him the most trouble were the guys who were eye-to-eye with him. The Tim Bradleys, the Marquezes, even Agapito Sanchez back in the day. He was right there, right in his face. Taller guys. He just has a knack for closing the distance, catching them heavy over that front foot, countering over that jab. So I think stylistically, Mario falls under all of those characteristics. Tall guy, fights heavy on that front foot, really likes to throw that a hard jab and a hard left hook. A lot of opportunities for the southpaw to counter. The question is, can the 46-year-old Manny pull that trigger? Does he have that explosive first step that made him famous? Listen, the volume's probably not going to be there. The exceptional elite level footwork's not going to be there. But listen, that boxing IQ is going to be there. That timing probably won't be there because he's been out of the ring, but that's why he's got Freddie Roach. You got to work on it in the gym. So, it's going to be what version of that 46-year-old shows up.
Did you get a chance to see like the exhibitions and his last fight was with? Okay, then based on, I've heard many people say based on that, like they're worried. They're worried about what's going to happen to Manny.
Yeah, a lot of boxing people didn't watch the exhibition. And I've talked to them about it, and I bring it up, and they're like, oh, no, I didn't get to see that yet. I'm like, oof, you need to see that because the guy is shaped just like Mario Barrios. And he's a watered-down version. He's not a boxer. He's a kickboxer. And he did things that Barrios does really well, and it worked on Manny well. That little pullback, boom, straight right hand, boom, right down the middle, pop in the right hands, nice and straight, good technique. That's one thing about Mario. He's got good pop at 47. He drops everyone. And I don't think it's because he's a huge puncher or like a super heavy-handed guy. It's because he has great structure on his punches. Very good fundamentals, good structured punch where he lines up his body well. And those are the kind of shots that can give a guy like Manny, who kind of flies in at times, a lot of trouble, which we saw in that kickboxing match, or against that kickboxer, rather. The Ugas fight, I recently saw an interview where Manny said that he had some outgoing court case kind of thing that really wore on him and distracted him. Listen, I've been in that exact same situation. I get it. It can really affect your performance at a fight. So there is that there.
Like even on the night of you don't block that out on the night of the fight.
Bro, when I fought Spence, all the media talked about all week long was my feud and ongoing litigation with my promoter, and it was wearing on me anyway. I was, it's all I could think about when I was sleeping at night, all of camp, and I was really disgusted with the whole sport of boxing and the business side. So yeah, it can definitely wear on you, even at the highest level. So when I saw Manny say that, I was like, you know what? I actually feel better about myself feeling that way, because I always that's an excuse. I shouldn't, like you said, that shouldn't be bothering me. But when Manny says it bothers me, I'm like, all right, maybe I was a little too hard on myself. But yeah, in terms of this fight and and where Manny's at compared to where he was, it's hard to say. But I will say this: I don't think he was really training for that fight, that exhibition. To me, it looked like he was just like, it's 4 rounds. It's a guy who doesn't even box. I'm just going to go out there and beat this guy up, kind of like he did with the guy before that. But this guy was a real fighter. Like, I know who he is as a kickboxer. The guy can really fight. This is a little different. You're seeing Manny in Wildcard Gym. You're seeing him with Freddie Roach. You're seeing him day to day. I'm watching his body change over these weeks. I'm watching the training camps. My nephew, Michael Algieri, was just out in camp with them, sparred with Manny's son, Manuel Pacquiao Jr., ran with Manny, got to see him, and he's like, he's working hard. So I think it's going to be definitely a different version from that kickboxing guy. But is it going to be different than the Ugas fight? I don't know. That was 4.5 years ago. He looked listless. He didn't look focused in that fight. He didn't look like he had it. Didn't have that good first step. But I think we're going to be able to tell really early on in this fight what version of Manny we got.
Yeah, that's going to be my next natural question is, in those first 5 rounds, like what are you going to be looking for, Chris, that's really going to, you feel, tell or paint the story of the fight?
Manny was always known for his elite footwork, his volume punching, his offense, his blistering speed. Granted, all of that's going to be dumbed down. It's not going to be the same. The footwork, I don't expect it. And one of the things about Manny's footwork, or just in general, his fundamentals, he did a lot of things wrong. But he was so athletic and so fast and so explosive that he got over on that. He was able to do that. As he slows down, are those fundamental flaws going to rise to the top? Are they going to be that much more visible? They were when he fought that exhibition. You could see him falling forward, getting very square, staying in bad position for too long. At his best, even when he was in bad position, his feet were so quick. His ability to change direction was so good. His angle creation was so seamless. I don't expect all that, but the boxing IQ will still be there. The big question for me, one of the things that I really thought made Manny special, and what I noticed in the ring too, was his first step. It was so damn fast. Fastest hands I ever fought in a ring was Amir Khan. Fastest first step was Manny Pacquiao. His ability to pull the trigger early on, pop that straight left hand right down the middle. If I see him go out there, pop that straight left hand on the heavy-footed Mario Barrios, and bangs him, cracks him with her left hand early, I'm like, okay, we got to fight. If I see him falling out of position, being off balance, getting square, and getting countered early on, I'm gonna know right away this is gonna be a bad night for Manny.
Yeah, how I don't want to say intimidating, but how surprising was that first step, that first lead left hand from a Manny?
So I fought Manny 4.5 months or 5 months after I fought Ruslan Pravakhan. In that fight, I broke my orbital and my nose. My eye was damaged throughout camp. We had to really be careful. During sparring, actually sparring really late into camp, wearing the damn headgear with the bar, which I hated using. It was not 30 seconds into the first round where he threw a straight left hand, and the thing was so straight and so explosive, the glove just got bigger, until it hit me. And it hit me right in that eye, and I was like, here we go again. I felt the swelling happening. I'm like, I got literally transported right back to the round 1 of Ruslan, and I'm like, I cannot believe he hit me with that right away. But yeah, the first step was jarring. It was like, woof, that thing is fast, and he's got bricks for hands. But the speed was more than the power. I always said, I thought Ruslan hit harder. I thought Spence hit harder, but the speed, the explosiveness, the angles, those are the things that made Manny different and special.
Yeah. So, okay, based on your experience fighting Manny, what does Mario need to look out for, even at a 46-year-old Manny who might not be as fast as he used to be, might not be as explosive as he used to be, or as mobile, but there are still things that he needs to look out for?
Yeah, I think Mario should be setting traps. Don't overthrow that first jab. Play with that lead hand. Shortchange that jab. He's got such a long reach advantage. Shortchange that jab. Make him think you're a certain length, and then draw him in. Stand your ground. Look for that counter right hand. I had a great conversation with the Galaxy Warrior, Nate Campbell, a couple weeks back. Actually, probably a couple months now. He's a Florida guy down here. He's at one of our Pro Box TV shows. And we were talking about Manny Pacquiao. We were talking about fighting him. And he goes, man, you know what you got to do when you fight Manny Pacquiao? And I'm like, I'm listening. I'm like, what's up, Nate? What do you got to do? And he points right over my shoulder. And he points. He goes, you got to do what that man did. It's Juan Manuel Marquez. He goes, you got to stand your ground and punch with him. And I'm like, you know what? Absolutely. Problem is that you're punching with Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
And the guy couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You punch with the guy, okay, you land a punch, and then two more are coming after that. So it's like a high-risk scenario there.
I knew that too, but a lot of times when we land at the same time, his hurt me, mine didn't hurt him. So it was in that situation, given that. But Marquez is obviously a different kind of puncher. But yeah, I think with Barrios though, I think if he kind of short sells his length and goads Manny in, hopefully Manny doesn't have the same feet, falls off balance, and Mario, like I said, he's got a very good structured punch. He keeps his fundamentals good. There's no fat on those punches. There's no daylight. So he lands that punch. It's nice stiffness. He gets good extension on the end of those punches. If he can keep Manny on the end of those shots, even off of counters, I think he's got a real good shot to look really good that night.
So, like boxing math would say, Manny got beat by Ugas. Ugas goes and fights Barrios, and he loses pretty convincingly against Barrios. Barrios should beat Manny. Are people right to make that assumption, or very wrong?
Well, let's give the counter argument there. So Keith Thurman lost to Manny Pacquiao, a 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao, mind you, gets dropped early, got hurt to the body really bad in the middle rounds. Keith Thurman beat Mario Barrios, closer to his prime. So do those cancel each other out? No, of course not, because that's not how boxing math works. Because boxing math doesn't work. But so it really depends on how you look at it. I think with more of that, you just got to study certain things that each guy does. At the highest level, I mean, it's centimeters. It's not even inches. It's not even a game of inches, boxing. But again, I think it's more about what version of Manny we get. I think we're going to get the best version of Mario. And Mario was a guy who, up until maybe his last two fights, Abel Ramos and then the Fabian Maidana fight, I was like really high on him. Like, this guy's getting better all the time. I'm really liking. I called him an ever-improving fighter. I thought Bob Santos has been doing a fantastic job with him. Been in some tough fights. Obviously, the loss to Tank, the loss to Keith, but those are top-flight guys. And then, but he was improving, and I really liked it. The Ugas fight I thought was very, very impressive. It's another guy I rate very highly. But then with Fabian and then Abel, it's like, it's looking, I don't know what happened, So I think a lot of people are kind of basing him off of those last performances, because it's boxing, right? So what have you done for me lately? But I believe we're going to get the best version of Mario Barrios, and he's going to be absolutely prepared, fitness-wise, strength-wise, timing-wise, and game plan-wise. The question is, what version of Manny are we getting? At 46, there's just a lot of question marks, and we're not going to know. I will say this. I really want to see Manny on the scale. I want to see what his body looks like. Because, again, like the fight with the kickboxer, the exhibition match, he didn't look fit. He didn't look like he was really training.
Yeah, he was a little soft. He was a little flubbery. Yeah,
a little fleshy. Yeah. Something we'd never really seen from Manny. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was slower, and he got tired. All things we never saw from Manny before. So I have reason to believe that he did not really train for that fight. This fight he's training for. You watch these montages, you watch him training, you're seeing his body change, you're seeing him do all the things he used to do. I want to see Manny on the scale. But then, like I said earlier, what we see in those first couple of rounds, really that first round, I think I'm going to know more or less what kind of fight we're going to get.
Yeah, well, usually the first round's like a feeling out round, and maybe we'll see Manny attempting, trying to see how Mario is going to respond, and then by the second or third maybe it'll little by little start. I think by the sixth, that's when hands are going to start flying. At least I think. But going back to something you said, how you felt that Mario was improving, and then the last two fights he looked like he wasn't. And I think a lot of people, the reason why they say this is a good fight for Manny stylistically is because those last two fights and seeing that Mario chose to like bang it out with those guys and he got hit and they figured like, well, he's getting hit by these guys. Imagine how, regardless if Manny's 46, Manny's throwing a lot more behind those punches and can punch harder. Like, what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, they always say the power's less than the go, right? If Manny can still pull that trigger and he can still find those holes in guys' defense, if Mario chooses to fight that same way, like he did against Ramos, like he did against Maidana, and he gets hit with those shots, with Manny's shots, it's a different kind of puncher, even at 46. So that's when the Pacquiao hopers, that's what they're looking for. The Pacquiao hopers are saying, this guy didn't look great in that fight. He's stylistically, physically, he's the kind of guy that Manny likes to fight. Yeah, I think about Marco. I think about Antonio Margarito. Tall, front-footed, hard, heavy, stiff jabs, big left hooks. It's kind of similar to Mario Barrios. Very different fighters in terms of athleticism and speed and whatnot. But, he's a bigger guy. He's heavy over that front foot. He's looking to hit you hard with that left hand. Manny always does really well with those kinds of guys. But it's got to be that Manny of old. That was a lifetime ago. It seems like, but that's where like I said, the Pacquiao hopers. That's what they're looking at.
So, given everything we just talked about, Chris, and even the intangibles, like what's the most likely thing that happens the night of the fight? You feel?
Most likely, Barrios is I don't know what the betting lines are, but I would assume he's the favorite, and I think he should be. Most likely scenario is that Barrios' youth, vitality, hunger, and opportunity of this big moment gets the better of the older, aging former senator. But there is that thought that if anybody can do it, it's Manny Pacquiao. If he can find, if he can go back to the well one more time, it seems like he's kind of got the right guy in front of him. And if he's got enough left, it could be a miracle. It could be one of those nights where, man, what a feather in the cap that would be to come back and be the oldest welterweight champion in history. Not that he needs any more accolades in his unbelievably stellar accomplishments of his career, but man, that wouldn't hurt. Man, that wouldn't hurt. It would be historic. And honestly, with a loss, I don't think it affects his legacy negatively. And that's one of the people ask, why do you think he's doing this? I'm like, it's kind of a no lose situation. Other than his health, obviously. I hate to say no lose because we have a lot to lose as fighters. But in terms of if it all goes well and he comes out on the other side healthy, the God willing, I don't think it affects him negatively if he doesn't win. And if he wins, my God, I mean, he's already one of the best of our generation. He's already one of the best fighters we've ever seen. But man, it would be an amazing night for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Taking myself out of this, the worrying thing is if he wins. He's 46, and you look at the potential opponents that people have thrown out and the ones that make business sense, and it's like, oh, these are hard fights. He's 46. We don't know how he's going to be 10, 15 years from now because he keeps going. Yeah. It's a tough one, man, because, Manny's like a beloved figure in boxing, and like you said, boxing is a dangerous sport, and usually – for someone who has fought as long as Manny has fought, and if they continue fighting into older age, the punches start accumulating, and that's where we see the issues that are very common amongst fighters when they get older. And, we don't want to see that happen to any fighter. So, yeah, it is a little bit worrisome. If he does look good and he wins, they start popping up, hey, Manny, you can have another fight. What about Rolly? What about Tank? What about this and that? What do you think?
Yeah, and listen, I don't see Manny winning this fight and then wrapping it up and being like, okay, I've done enough. That's my feather in my cap. He could have done that to Keith Thurman. He did have to Keith Thurman. Oh boy, man, that would have been amazing. Because that fight was tremendous. What a performance! At 40 years old, to take the O of someone as good as Keith Thurman was tremendous. He wraps it up after that. It's like, boy, man. But also, it's that same question of being like, well, what happens if Roy Jones comes back down to light heavyweight, scrapes by Antonio Tarver, and then hangs it up? What if he doesn't even take the Harbor fight? What if he just does it after John Ruiz? Oh, man, what a career, right? But us fighters, we love to keep fighting on. We always think we got one more. And also, Marcos, the paychecks, dude. He wins this fight. I mean, the money is it's astronomical, especially now. So, yeah, I don't see him winning this fight and then wrapping it up. And listen, we're already entering the space where safety is a concern. But the further you go down, and keep extending, keep kicking this down the road, the more dangerous it is.
Yeah, it's tough for me as an observer knowing that, the perfect time would have been the Thurman fight, honestly, and even with the Ugas fight, I know that was supposed to be the Spence fight, and then Spence, the eye issue happened, and he had to get out of the fight, and it was Ugas. But, even that, I think that would have been like the perfect send-off, and they always say, every great fighter has one last great performance in them. And I thought for Manny, it was the Thurman fight. And like you said, can he go back into the well and have one more last great moment? But it's always present in my mind, he's 46. I would just rather see him chill to avoid, another tragic boxing story, especially someone like a Manny.
Yeah, I used to say that all the time when guys were fighting on, past their primes, especially the elite guys. I always think of Sugar Ray Leonard when he came back to fight Terry Norris, and then eventually Hector Camacho. I mentioned Roy Jones earlier, who was my hero, and he kept going. But at the end of the day, and I remember back then, I used to be like, oh man, why are you doing it? Now, being on this side of my career, I'm like, they're grown men. They can do whatever they want. It's entirely up to them. It's up to what they feel in themselves. Listen, we are all special. We got in there and we did it. And we did it at the highest level. You have to have this self-belief that is higher than anyone else's can ever understand. So I get it. I get why they come back. I get why they think they have one more in them. I used to think that about myself throughout my career. In any situation, it's one of the reasons why I fought so many really tough guys, especially on top of each other, back to back to back. I was like, listen, on any given night, I can do a miracle. I can perform a miracle on any given night. I've done it before. I've done it in the worst possible situation. I can do it again. And that's just the mindset that you have to be at the highest levels of the sport. So I get it. I get why these guys do it. And I will never say, hey man, I don't do it, because it's not up to me. It's up to you. You're a grown man. That's your own future, your own body, and your own self-belief.
Yeah, Chris, you will be hosting the viewer chat on ppv.com coming up for this Pacquiao versus Barrios pay-per-view that will be available on Amazon Prime. It's happening at the MGM Grand. I just want to touch quickly on the co-main event, which could be its own main event. Tszyu, Sebastian Fundora Part 2. Do we see the same exact fight, Chris, with a Tim or a Sebastian winning? How do you see it?
Well, I don't think we're going to see the same fight, because that was the bloodiest fight I've ever seen. Might have been the bloodiest fight in history, with that vicious elbow cut on the forehead of
I meant
Tszyu.
the same action-packed fight. Yeah.
I think result for sure. I think both of these guys are only in action-packed fights. Fundora has really grown on me. I know there was a lot of hype around him coming up for a while, and then Mendoza knocked him out, which is a big surprise. But obviously, he's since come back to become dominant and is a unified champion now. Tszyu, another guy who had a lot of hype around him, who was really just tearing through things and through guys and becoming the guy to look out for. It takes back-to-back losses, one of them just brutally to Murtazaliev. So I'm a big fan of both these guys. I've interviewed both these guys a bunch of times. Just super solid guys that you want to be champions, and they fight their asses off. So I think it's going to be a really good fight once again. Early on in their first fight, I thought Tszyu looked phenomenal. Couldn't miss a right hand. Was blasted Fundora's nose early. Looked really good, had a good game plan for a taller guy. And then the cut. And say what you will about the cut and the blood going in his eyes, but not for nothing, Fundora went to his jab. And we never seen him do that before. He made an adjustment, and he earned his championship win that night. So I think in terms of momentum, Fundora's in a much better spot. He's looked really good his last couple fights, and Tszyu has not. He lost 2 in a row, and then he had a blowout of Spencer, which I don't think really did much. So momentum-wise, it's definitely in Fundora's court, but the momentum from that first fight, I mean, Tszyu has the game plan. He knows how to fight this guy. I expect fireworks once again. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, and really, it's a pick 'em fight. I couldn't pick a winner right now.
Okay, yeah, because the times I've spoken to Tim, and I've mentioned to him, hey, what do you think would have happened if that cut would have never happened in the fight? And he's like, dude, I was winning the fight. I was on the way to winning the fight, and I wonder if that's still kind of like in his mind, like, dude, I was beating this guy before this happened. I know how to beat this guy. I know how to fight this guy. And that kind of gives him like an extra confidence, like coming into the fight. Or like you mentioned, on the flip side, he's kind of questioning himself again. And maybe, even though he says he doesn't have PTSD from the cut, maybe those little things start popping up if he gets hit with something solid by Fundora in the fight.
From the cut, and also the Murtazaliev destruction. You get blown out like that when you're a guy who's normally the tank. That can be an issue. That's getting over that psychologically is really important. I think a lot of times even the chin can get over better than the brain, than your psyche, I should say, not your brain. So it depends if Tszyu can go in there and get over those demons early on and get right back to work like he did in the beginning of that fight. I'm really looking forward to that fight. It's a tremendous fight. And you mentioned the chat on Fight Night. Man, we have a lot of fun in there for ppv.com. As you're streaming, you can literally ask us questions. We've got a whole panel of guys. We're ringside. We talk about a lot of the finer nuanced things of the sport of boxing, even though we're watching fights live. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it's cool little observations that you guys have, and just the ability to be able to chat with you guys during that portion of it. So you can check it out on ppv.com. Just on my last thing about that specific fight with Tszyu and Fundora. Ultimately, to you, Chris, like what makes the difference in the fight? Because we both know both are going to come, both are going to throw, both. I would say maybe Tim's a little bit of a bigger puncher than Fundora, but what makes the difference between those two style-wise?
I think it's going to come down to intelligence. I think it's going to come down to Fundora, I believe, used to kind of just go balls to the wall and just go fight. Lately, I've seen him using a lot more knowledge, using that reach that he has, jabbing a bit more. I think if he can create space and jab, and not allow Tszyu into the front door so much, defend against that right hand, keep that distance. And when he does get inside, Fundora's actually a really good inside fighter. He just leaves some hand position holes. And I think similarly for Tszyu, I think he needs to be smart. I think he needs to not stand right in front of Tszyu and just in front of Fundora and just get into a trading contest. He's got a good stiff jab, even though he's got a much shorter reach, and he's got to land that right hand. And I think that middle distance for him, crossing that critical distance line, being able to get across with that jab and land that right hand is going to be really important. And then the follow-up. You got a lot of real estate, man. His flanks are feet long. You got a lot of body shots that you can land. I don't think Tim threw any body shots in that first fight, which was really surprising, even with the cut. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fight about making adjustments. I think the guy who can learn from that first time out, adjust on the fly, and stay in control of themselves, not even in control of their opponent, control of themselves, is going to come out the victor.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the body, and then it just kind of triggered Tim talking about chopping down the tree, and now I think, okay, maybe him and the team did recognize that, like, hey, it's so much space there, like the abdomen to the chest, to be able to target. It's easier for you to get to. I wonder if, they're making an adjustment for that.
And that's actually why I really fancied Spence versus Fundora. I was like, oh, Spence is going to win. The body punching of Spence, I mean, there's so many openings for Fundora. One, Fundora, obviously, he's got the super long torso. But two, he's so busy on the inside. There's openings in between there. And yes, he's a dangerous puncher, but there's opportunities to slip those body shots in there. When you got a guy that's long and that frame, it's there. And Spence is such a prolific body puncher. And he stays in the pocket, holds his ground really well. I actually fancied him against Fundora. Let's see if Tszyu can do that, because Tszyu is a pretty good body puncher himself. We've seen that in past fights, but there was almost none in the first fight. I will say this: so he's working with my boy Michael Fox, and he's like 6'5", southpaw. He's an excellent representation of Fundora, and he's been in camp with him a couple times now, so that should aid. Also, we do have to remember, Tszyu was not preparing for Fundora. that first
preparing
time
for
out.
Keith Thurman.
Preparing for Keith Thurman,
Yeah.
a guy who's 5'9" and an orthodox fighter coming up in weight, not a guy who's 6'7", a southpaw who's in his natural weight, who was in shape because he was fighting on that card. He was supposed to fight, I think, Bohochuk that night. So that gets lost in the sauce. We got to keep that in mind as well.
Man, you know what? It just kind of got me thinking, like, I almost rather, like, fighters not know who they're fighting until the night of. Like, wouldn't that be like, or like at least the weigh-in, there's like this little lottery ball, and they're like,
Go to the
all
amateurs.
right,
Go watch the amateurs, bro.
yeah. No, I know how that's how the amateurs are, but like, wouldn't that be like such more exciting? Like, you know, like now is this guy against this guy, and you're like, oh man, like how are they going to prepare for this? You know, I would imagine it's freaking probably stressful on the fighter, but like as a observer, that'd be great. Like, I'd love to see that.
But don't you like a game plan when it comes into fruition, when you get to see a well thought out game plan over weeks and months at a time, and then they execute? I love that part because, I mean, listen, I'm a boxing IQ guy. I want to see the game plan come together.
Yeah, I like to see chaos. Dude, imagine. Yeah,
this makes sense.
Like, yeah, like that situation. You know, like who would imagine? Like, oh yeah, we have Fundora and now Tszyu, and you're like, oh crap! Like how is he going to deal with this? Like on a day's notice.
It was a full on Uno reverse. It is opposite. Everything is opposite. And Tim, dude, is a warrior. That took balls. He's the main event. He wanted to keep the card. He's fighting in the States for the first time. I mean, Dude, I really like Tszyu for the way that he carries himself and the risks that he takes, and that was a big risk. Obviously, it didn't work out for him, but I'm happy he keeps getting chances still. Because I think the powers that be recognize that he is a warrior.
Yeah, dude. Well, I was on the call when they told Tim about what happened at Thurman and that it was going to be Fundora. He was upset, but he was like, screw it. You know, this is what I got to do. This is like a fighter, but. I would imagine, like, yeah, like the team was like, what the F? Like, dude, this guy is like 6'5". He's a southpaw. Like, we have 10 days. Like, oh, we haven't sparred anyone as tall as him. Like, oh, my God. What a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, well, they flew on my boy, Michael Fox, like literally that week. They got like 1 or 2 sessions in, like back-to-back days, which, again, isn't really going to help you that much. Probably not. It's more for kind of like just to kind of ease your head a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, that's, again, it just shows you Tim is a throwback, man. He is a throwback. He was willing to, I'm sure he didn't even question it. He's like, yeah, that's what I got to do, like you said.
Yeah, 154 got a lot of guys in there that makes it really entertaining. If Manny wins this, I think he'll be the only fighter to be a Hall of Famer and hold a world title as well. That's all going down coming up on pay-per-view. One last thing I want to just get your opinion on, Chris. This Canelo versus Crawford fight. See, a lot of people now kind of switching their pick over to Crawford based on how Canelo looked against William Skull. It seems it's 50-50 as opposed to maybe a year ago when talk began of this fight. Overwhelmingly amount of people were like, Canelo's just way too big for Crawford. Like, this is not going to be a competitive fight. Now that both fighters have had a fight to kind of see where they're at, how are you seeing it? Has your opinion changed at all?
Not a whole lot. It hasn't changed all that much. Listen, the Skull fight, could Canelo have done more? Absolutely. But is that going to be the same version of guy that's going to show up in September? No. I mean, Canelo... he didn't look as fit as he did his last fight. He didn't look. He looked listless. He looked like he didn't care. He didn't have the crowd behind him. And Marcus, you've been to a ton of Canelo fights. You know how that arena is. It is insane, in Vegas. I mean, it's deafening the entire fight. I remember when he fought B.J. Saunders in
oh my
Texas,
God,
and he's waving
Saunders
on 80,000 fans.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he is a gladiator. I called Tim a warrior. Canelo's a gladiator. He is there for the adoration of the fans. I just think that he was a little too clinical in there that night. He didn't have that same drive. He had a guy who just was not willing to engage. That's not going to be Crawford, and that's not going to be Canelo. They're going to be their peak of what they are at this point. Because again, Crawford is 38 years old. Canelo will be 35 by then. So I think they're going to be the peak for what they are at their ages. But it's easy to go, well, what have you done for me lately? That's usually how everyone kind of sees everything. So, but I think it's good. I think it makes the fight more enticing if a lot of people are thinking that Crawford can win. And don't get me wrong, Crawford can absolutely win the fight. I'm not saying he can't win the fight. But in terms of, how I see it, it hasn't really changed my thoughts because I know better than to just trust that last thing I saw because there's a lot of confounding factors.
So you feel Canelo is going to win the fight?
I leaned Canelo, yeah.
Yeah.
I always have. I've always leaned Canelo. Just it's the good big man versus the good small man.
Recently, though, we've seen the good small man beat the good big man because of the speed.
Yes, yeah, but Canelo's not slow. It's not like Canelo is actually a smaller man who's come up to fight a lot of bigger men. Because his hand speed, the guys can't deal with him. So his ability to cut off the ring, the fact that he imposes his will, he puts a lot of mental pressure on his opponents without even doing a whole lot. He doesn't throw a ton of punches. He throws less now than ever, but he's there. He's got this frame and his physique. And I've sparred Canelo. The guy's a tank. Like he's very physical in the ring without doing a whole lot, just because of his presence. So I'm curious to see how Terrence, how Bud can deal with that. But dude, kind of like I said about Manny, if anybody can do it, man, it's Bud. He's so smart. The guy's like an alien in there. The way he sees things, the way he pulls the trigger, the game. He's also a game plan guy. They make game plans. They don't just show up and fight. They know what they're doing, how they're doing it, or what round they're doing it in. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, intriguing fight. It's just really hard for me to forget the Madrimov fight at 54, which was 2 weight classes ago. And I think Madrimov is phenomenal, by the way. I think he's a really, really good fighter. And I think that people underestimated how good Madrimov really was, and he was mashing wits with Crawford all night long. But the size, the strength, the physicality, that was all an issue for Crawford that night. Jump up 2 more weight classes, it's just, again, it's a lot of factors to think about. But it's 2 great fighters fighting. They're just a couple weight classes apart.
Yeah, like that Madrimov fight is I don't know, it's a weird one in a way because you look at it and you think, yo, Madrimov landed these punches. What's going to happen if Canelo lands these punches? Because he will land some of those type of punches. And like, look how close of a fight those two had. Now you had a guy who's 2 weight classes more who knocks out guys that are like 190, 200 in his fights. Like, it's like, look, like what's going to happen. But I don't know. Like I said, I think a lot of people are underestimating how good Madrimov is. And also that Madrimov helped Bivol prepare for Canelo. He just he's a lot faster than Canelo too. With his, if you've seen his footwork drills are freaking crazy. The
better conditioning too.
Those Uzbek foot drills are crazy. Just my thing with this is I feel I have such, and maybe I'm wrong, I have such high esteem for Crawford's IQ that I think it levels out the weights.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely could. I'm thinking about Callum Smith when Crawford targeted his shoulder and basically busted his bicep. Canelo targeted his shoulder and basically busted his arm. Like, that's another thing about Canelo. When you're as big and when you're strong as you are, and you're fighting, a guy as small than you, he just has to hit you. He hits your elbow, he hits your shoulder. Is Crawford going to be able to really keep himself from getting touched all night long? But listen, Crawford's a really strong guy. We've seen how strong he is physically. We saw him, throw Spence around. We've seen him be that way. We didn't see it in the Madrimov fight, but again, like all your points, Madrimov is an excellent fighter, very underrated. But it's a very intriguing fight, and it's one of those ones where it's like, I'm not gonna really know until we're there. Because we're gonna see so much build up. We're gonna get to see these guys. We're seeing them a little bit with each other now, but the fight's still pretty far away. I think as we get closer and we really start getting down to the nitty gritty, it's gonna. I think that's really when the guys who are really looking are gonna be able to know who's probably gonna win.
Yeah, if they do workouts the week before, it'll be a good indication of how they look. Because I remember when I saw Crawford the week before the Spence fight, they did like back-to-back workouts. We saw, Spence do a workout, and then we saw Crawford do a workout. And I had already been favoring Crawford just because of the styles and really because of the Ugas fight. I felt like if Ugas did that to Spence, it's going to be a lot worse because Crawford's a lot better and he places the punches better. But when I saw Crawford work out, I just noticed how much quicker he was than Spence. And his reflexes looked just a lot more sharper than Spence. And I thought, like, oh, this is not good for Spence. But based off that, too, like, because he's coming up in weight, I've noticed Crawford has put on some size. He does look a little bit thicker. And I do wonder, like, what's the right balance there to not lose his speed advantages, or, he gains so much weight that he becomes a little slower, a little, what's the right word?
Lumbering.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Listen, you're going to give up speed. You're putting on tissue that your body's just not used to. I mean, Crawford has a good frame. He's got long arms. He's got wide shoulders. But where everyone has a ceiling. Where's his actual ceiling? And I know, listen, he gets heavy in between fights. He shows himself on the scale. That's different than lean tissue. If you and I'm sure you've been around Canelo. The guy is just dense, thick. From his neck to his ankles. Everything is thick. He's got thick wrists, thick hands, thick kneecaps, thick ankles. He's got a thick midsection. He's heavily muscled. He's not a big guy, shorter than me, not really wide-shouldered, very, very different build, but heavily muscled, especially around the trunk area. So it's a clash of styles. It's a clash of body types. The question is, we've never seen Crawford at 68. And yes, the boxing IQ is there. Obviously, he's had speed, but how fast is he going to be at 68? He's obviously not going to be cutting any weight. So there's that. He'll be fresh. I don't know. Moving around that ring, carrying extra weight, how is that going to feel? Because that can tire you out too. The gas tank can be different. A lot of things. But I'll say this about the Crawford and the Spence fight week, because I was there as well. Crawford was cutting weight. Crawford looked big at 47. I think that was his last fight at 47 for a good reason. He was not like just the smaller guy. Like they were pretty much the same size at that point, even though everyone always thought that Spence was a much bigger guy, and he always was. Crawford grew into a real welterweight, but he doesn't have time to grow into a real super middle, and I don't think he should, because I think he should maintain some of that speed rather than size. But I don't know. We'll see. Crawford is something special, dude. I swear, he's like an alien. The way he's able to maneuver and make his body work for himself the way he has.
My last one for you, Chris. It's a two-parter. If Crawford does this and pulls this off, what does it do for his legacy? Where do you rank him all time? And on the flip, if Canelo beats Crawford, what does that do for his legacy and how he's perceived as a fighter going forward in the future?
Kind of similar to what Canelo said last year. It's a lose-lose for him. I mean, with a win, it's like everyone's just going to say, yeah, duh, you're supposed to beat him. But actually context matters. How he wins is going to matter. If he struggles to get by and wins the decision, I think it's going to hurt Canelo. If he goes out there and he knocks him out, it's going to be like, yeah, all right, cool. You knocked that guy 3 weight classes below you. You're supposed to. Crawford wins. I mean, forget it. We're talking. Now we're entering the all-time great status. We're talking about pound for pound, based on everything he's done so far, which has been a ridiculous amount of things. Undisputed in multiple weight classes. All the weight classes that he's won titles. Just jumping over middleweight to grab the undisputed at 68. It's nuts. Even saying it out loud sounds crazy to me. But the guy might do it. That's the crazy thing about it. And if he loses, I don't really think it affects his legacy all that much. All the accomplishments that he already has, Crawford, those are not going to be forgotten. He's jumping up 2 weight classes. So I take it as a win-win, loss-loss situation for these guys. Win-win for Crawford and lose-lose for Canelo.
Yeah, there's just now that I think about it, I think there's a lot on the line for Canelo in this, in
Yes.
terms of something that Crawford brought up during the press conference, and he told him, hey, look, every time you stepped up against an elite guy, you lost. You lost against Floyd. You lost against Bivol. The disputed win over GGG, that first fight.
Lara.
And Lara, yeah, it's like every time you fought an elite guy, it's, you either lost or something murky. And I think for Canelo to, I don't know, I feel like to him to finally prove, like, hey, look, this is what I did to an elite guy. Like, look, I could handle this style. Yeah, I wasn't able to do it against Floyd. Floyd and Crawford are different fighters. I was too young back then, but look what I did regardless of the weight situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And That's a great point made by Crawford, and that's a good way to get under Canelo's skin. And yeah, there is a lot on the line for Canelo, because if he loses this, the tarnish on his legacy is massive. It's like, dude, you lost to a welterweight. You know, you lost to a lightweight. He was a lightweight world champion. You lost to a lightweight. And you guy jumped up 2 weight classes. The guy was 38 years old. There's going to be a lot of that. A lot of the criticisms that Canelo's been getting lately by not fighting certain guys. That's gonna come back to haunt him that much more.
My only thing, I guess, to that was if he does lose, I see it as a very competitive fight. He lost against a guy who's will be considered an all-time great, a very, very special fighter, and Canelo's already accomplished so much. I don't think it's gonna tarnish. Everyone has short-term memory, Chris. The short-term memory, bro. They're going to forget about that. They're going to remember the stadiums he filled up, the people he knocked out, that undisputed run, that tear that he went through. Like that's to me his shining accomplishment, where he took out the division, and he fought the best in that division, and he took them out one by one.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a huge. You're talking to a big Canelo fan. I like Canelo. I like what he's done, but he gets a lot of heat out there, man. I gets a lot of heat out there, and I think a loss here, it's going to be a lot more. So there is going to be that, because I mean, I don't get it. There's people who talk about his legacy now as not being that great. I'm like, come on, guy, you're just being. I feel like you're being a hater at this point. But if a loss here is just going to fuel and fan those flames. I'm still going to understand, like you said, when he was ripping through, I hate to say it, but Yildirim was in there, Callum Smith, BJ Saunders, Caleb Plant. Like, that was awesome. That was prime peak Canelo. He was a machine, and I was at most of those fights. I was at Yildirim, and I was at BJ Saunders. And, it was insane what he was able to do at that point, the people he had behind him, and just going out there and just performing the way he was. Devastating, very good top flight fighters.
Yeah, no, both are going to be in the Hall of Fame. Both are all-time
first ballot.
Great, fighters. This is why they fight the fights, man. May the best man win between the two. Chris, hey, man, it's great catching up with you. Thank you for sharing some time with us over here on Fight Up TV. If you have anything you want to plug, go ahead, plug it in, man. Now's your chance.
Always a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. But yeah, just make sure to tune in ppv.com on Fight Night. Get in that chat. We enjoy, the more the merrier. Tell your friends. Make sure you keep tuning in. My podcast, Inside Boxing Live with Dan Canobio. We do 2 shows a week. We travel. ppv.com is our headline sponsor. And that's what we're doing.
All right, that is Chris Algieri. This is Marcos Villegas. Thank you guys for watching us over here on Fight Up TV. Thank you guys.